The movie begins with Wei sitting and drawing a flower. Her father, Shin, comes over and tells her that the flower is called the corpse flower because of its extremely foul smell, which attracts flies, allowing the flower to feed on them. We learn that her father is a scientist and that they spend a lot of time together in the laboratory, where he is working on a cure for the deformities on his face and Wei's face. One day, Shin manages to invent a treatment and tests it on a piece of skin. He attaches the skin to the deformed part of his face, and we see that it successfully integrates with his skin and heals the deformity. However, the experiment suddenly goes wrong, and the piece of skin starts expanding until it covers his mouth. Shin desperately searches for a solution but fails to find one, forcing him to grab a scalpel and try to cut it off. He cannot remove the skin and continues stabbing himself. Wei tries to help him, but accidentally kills him. Years pass, and Wei grows into a 15-year-old teenager. She becomes interested in anatomy like her father and is shown dissecting many butterflies, switching each butterfly's wing. It's clear that she is obsessed with perfection and is always searching for a cure for her own face. She overhears her relatives talking about her, saying she's strange and that she should live with her Aunt Ling. We learn that Wei has been bullied all her life and that people call her a monster because of her facial deformity. For this reason, Wei always wears a scarf to cover it. After a few days, Wei travels to live with her Aunt Ling, who tells her that she has a daughter about her age named Angela. She says they will have a lot of fun together, study at the same school, and encourages Wei to study to become a scientist like her father or to work with her in the cosmetics field. When they arrive at the house, Ling introduces Wei to their neighbor, Cheryl, warning her that Cheryl hates noise and loud sounds. Wei then meets Angela, who is clearly annoyed by Wei's presence because her mother constantly compares them and asks her to learn Chinese from Wei. However, Wei tells Angela that she speaks English too and will talk to her in whichever language she prefers. Later, Wei overhears Angela telling her father that she wants to leave because she doesn't feel comfortable with Wei around. At night, Wei stares at a photo of her father, telling him that tomorrow will be her first day at university. The next day, on her way to university, she sees a beggar with a deformed face sitting by the roadside. She feels sympathy for him, approaches him, and learns that his name is John. Then she attends a lecture by Dr. Paul, who hands back the morning test scores. Eva scores high, and the students expect her to be the top student. However, they are surprised to find that Wei has received a perfect score, which stirs jealousy and makes them think she's weird. Paul then announces he is looking for assistants for his lab, inviting interested students to apply. Wei seizes the opportunity and visits the lab. She notices Paul is working on research similar to her father's. She pulls out her father's notebook to compare the research. Suddenly, Paul appears and yells at her for ruining the experiment. Wei explains that she didn't mean to interfere but was surprised to see him working on similar research, showing him her father's notebook. She tells him her father was a scientist trying to fix his own facial deformity. Impressed, Paul allows her to work as his assistant. Meanwhile, Angela invites her friends, Eva and Jess, over to her house. They are surprised to see a memorial for Wei's father, Shin. Angela tells them her mother set it up to make Wei feel at home. Eva suggests they sneak into Wei's room to snoop around. They find her dissection tools, get scared, and confirm their belief that Wei is strange. While they are watching a movie, Wei suddenly appears, feeling deeply embarrassed by their behavior. Angela introduces Wei to her friends, calling them her friends too. Wei, happy, sits with them and eats, but they are disgusted and move away from her. The next day, Paul receives an email informing him that he has only 2 weeks left to submit his research or lose his funding, which stresses him out. Meanwhile, Angela, Eva, and Jess are hanging out together, with Wei watching them longingly, trying to imitate their way of speaking and wishing to be friends. She eventually approaches them and invites them to eat Chinese food. They go with her, but Angela seems jealous, fearing that Wei might steal her friends, so she treats her poorly. She refuses to eat chicken feet, mocks Wei's eating habits with Eva, and they eventually leave, abandoning her. Jess is the only one who says something kind to Wei, but even so, Wei is left heartbroken. She takes the food and goes to John, feeling that he is similar to her. She talks to him, asking if she is ugly. John tells her that she is beautiful and that people have simply become cruel. He advises her not to listen to others and to trust herself. Later, Paul surprises Wei by waiting for her and tells her that he will allow her to use his lab to continue her father's research. It becomes clear that he intends to exploit her and her father's work. He even drives her home. When she gets home, she overhears Angela with her boyfriend, Sean, and spies on them through a door crack. Angela notices her presence, kicks Sean out, then argues with Wei, telling her she shouldn't be spying on her. She mocks her appearance, calling her scary, and says she no longer wants her living with them, essentially kicking her out. Devastated by her words, Wei cries and convinces herself that Angela treats her badly because she is deformed and not beautiful. Determined, she decides to continue her research with Paul, picking up where her father left off. She explains to Paul that her father's research was missing a binding agent that could properly connect tissues together, and that this missing element had caused the experiment's failure and her father's death. Together, they search for an alternative substance. Wei continues experimenting to find a new material she can inject into skin to cure deformities, conducting numerous experiments on chicken skin, but all her attempts fail. At the same time, we discover that Paul is in a relationship with Eva. We return to Wei, who continues her research and experiments to the point where she no longer sleeps. She keeps talking to her father's picture, asking him for help. The next day, Wei is surprised when Jess comes to the lab asking about work. Wei assumes that Jess came to steal her research, especially after Paul agrees to hire her. However, it turns out that Jess is kind and was genuinely trying to get closer to Wei and befriend her. She even tells her that she's beautiful and doesn't need to wear the scarf. Later, Wei sees a poster about the flower and remembers her old drawing. She realizes that the secret might lie in the corpse flower, because it secretes an organic fluid that could be used to bond tissues. Determined, she goes to a nursery and steals the fluid from the flower. She uses it in one of her experiments, and it succeeds. Meanwhile, Paul and Eva are in their office when they hear a noise coming from the lab. Paul rushes over and finds Wei conducting an experiment on herself. Excited, he hurries to see the results. At the same time, Eva seizes the opportunity, secretly taking a photo of them together and sending it to Angela before leaving the lab. She then teases Wei, but quickly apologizes and offers to drive her home, only to cruelly abandon her in a dark street and drive away. Meanwhile, Paul notices that Wei left her father's notebook behind. He gives it to a colleague to translate because he plans to steal all of her father's research. Back at home, Angela, furious about the photo Eva sent, searches for Wei but can't find her. She calls her mother, begging her to come back home immediately, convinced that Wei will ruin her life and expose her to her friends. When Wei finally arrives home, she finds that Angela has smashed the memorial of her father. Heartbroken, Wei asks Angela why she hates her so much. Angela cruelly tells her that she hates her because she's a deformed freak, then attacks her and tries to strangle her. In self-defense, Wei grabs a pair of chopsticks and stabs Angela in the eye, accidentally killing her. Meanwhile, Aunt Ling is on her way back home. Wei is in shock, horrified that she killed her cousin by accident, but she quickly pulls herself together, drags Angela's body to the bathroom, and speaks to her, saying, "Don't worry, I'll fix you." However, she eventually realizes that Angela is truly dead. Wei then considers stealing Angela's face, thinking that she no longer has to live with her ugly appearance. She pulls out a scalpel, starts cutting her own face, then removes Angela's face and injects it with the strange fluid she extracted from the flower. Afterward, she attaches Angela's face onto hers. Suddenly, Wei transforms into Angela's likeness and decides to live as Angela from now on. She begins watching videos of Angela to learn how to talk and act like her and hides Angela's body under the bed. Soon after, she acts so convincingly that Aunt Ling doesn't even notice the difference and hugs her, believing she's her real daughter. The next day, Wei goes to school and no one suspects a thing, not even Josh, Angela's boyfriend. Wei is thrilled that she has taken over Angela's life. However, she faces a challenge. Angela was a basketball star, while Wei doesn't know how to play. To avoid a game, she breaks her finger on purpose. Later, she joins Eva and Jess, interacting with them just like Angela would, and again, no one notices anything unusual. Soon after, Josh invites her on a romantic date, but as he gets close to her, he notices her face starting to peel off. Terrified, he runs away, falls off a cliff, and dies. Panicked, Wei takes Angela's face and rushes home. She searches for her father's notebook but can't find it, so she texts Paul, asking if he has seen it. Then she tries to reattach Angela's face by injecting it again with the strange fluid. At the same time, Paul successfully retrieves the flower Wei used and manages to extract its fluid, meaning he now holds all the secrets of Wei's and her father's research. Meanwhile, Wei sneaks into Paul's office to search for her father's notebook, only to discover that Paul has stolen all her father's research. Furious, she calls him and argues with him, but Paul arrogantly tells her that she has no proof and can't accuse him of anything. Meanwhile, Eva is shown waiting for Paul, thinking to herself that it's time for her to have a prettier face. It becomes clear that Wei has become obsessed with beauty, and she starts planning to kill Eva and take her face too. She invites Eva to give her a ride home, staring at her the whole time with greedy, unsettling looks. When they arrive, Eva refuses to go inside, making an excuse that she needs to study. At this point, Angela's face is deteriorating badly on Wei, with her face breaking out into painful boils. Wei tries to inject herself again with the fluid, but it's useless. The next day, Wei goes out with Eva, who buys a dress. During their outing, Wei discovers that Eva is in a relationship with Dr. Paul and that she bought the dress to impress him. At that moment, Wei tells her, "You're so beautiful," and decides to kill her, to live with her beautiful face and use her relationship with Paul to get access to her father's notebook. Wei lures Eva to her house. There, Eva begins to feel scared by Angela's strange behavior and wants to leave. But Wei tells her she wants to show her something important, takes her to her room, and gives her a terrifying look before trying to strike her on the head. Eva manages to escape outside, with Wei chasing after her. Meanwhile, the dog starts barking loudly. Their neighbor, Cheryl, hears the barking and is about to come out and check what's going on. However, by then, Wei has already drowned Eva in the pool and dragged her body to the bathroom. Looking at her, Wei says, "Finally, I'll be the prettiest girl in school." Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. It's Cheryl. Wei opens the door just slightly, speaking from behind it and apologizing for the noise caused by the dog. Afterward, we see Wei cutting off Angela's old face and attaching Eva's face instead. She also wears green contact lenses, becoming an exact replica of Eva. Wei decides to live as Eva now. As usual, she studies Eva's videos to master her way of talking and behaving, making sure Paul wouldn't suspect anything. She holds a picture of her father and tells him she has succeeded and completed his experiments, and that she is finally beautiful. Suddenly, the police arrive, asking about Angela, as she was last seen with Josh before his death. Wei tells them she doesn't know where Angela is. She then goes to university, and none of the students notice the change in her. Even Jess talks to her, thinking she's Eva, and asks about Angela, who has been missing for a while. Jess finds Wei's reaction strange when she yells at her, saying she doesn't care about Angela anymore and doesn't want to hear anything about her. Later, Wei visits Paul at his house. He treats her as Eva and tries to get close to her. Wei is later shown washing herself, feeling disgusted by Paul and what happened between them. However, she forces herself to go along with it so he won't suspect her and so she can eventually access her father's notebook. After a while, Wei decides to cut up Eva's body and store it in the freezer in case she needs more of her skin later. As for Angela's body, she decides to bury it. Meanwhile, Cheryl once again hears noises and the dog barking. Wei comes out to her and introduces herself as Eva, Angela's friend, apologizing once again for the noise caused by the dog. She then gives the dog one of Eva's arms to eat and sends a message from Angela's phone to Aunt Ling, saying that she went on a trip with friend. She also sends a similar message to Eva's family. After that, Wei decides to publish a photo exposing Eva and revealing Paul's scandal, which causes him to get fired from his job. She then goes to his house to comfort him, but he throws her out. With no other options, Paul focuses solely on his work and experiments until he finally discovers the secret formula. He sends a message to Eva, inviting her to come celebrate. Wei seizes the opportunity, searches for her father's notebook, and finds the formula that Paul invented. At the same time, she notices that her face is starting to deteriorate, so she quickly steals the formula and runs away. Later, Paul discovers that the formula is missing and realizes that Eva, Wei, has stolen it. Meanwhile, we see Wei cutting off Eva's face while crying, realizing that the experiment has failed, and that no matter whose face she wears, it never lasts, it always decays. At that moment, Jess arrives, greets her warmly, and asks how she's doing. We see that Jess was the only person who genuinely liked Wei and wanted to be her friend. Jess hugs her and tells her she will help her and bring her something. However, when Jess opens the fridge, she screams in horror upon seeing Eva's dismembered corpse. Wei attacks her and strangles her to death, feeling heartbroken because she truly cared about Jess. Shortly afterward, Paul arrives at Wei's house and notices Eva's car outside. He decides to break in. Upon entering, he sees what Wei has done and asks about Eva, only to realize she's been killed. Terrified by Wei's cruelty but amazed by her invention, he considers stealing it. He asks her to return the formula and promises not to report her crimes to anyone. Wei tells him the formula is in the fridge. When Paul opens the fridge, he recoils in horror upon seeing Eva's body. At that moment, Wei attacks him and injects him with a deadly formula, the same substance that killed her father. She starts dancing around him while watching his skin grow uncontrollably. Before his mouth fully seals shut, she puts a straw in it so he can breathe, allowing her to watch him suffer longer. She tells him, "I know you were greedy for my father's knowledge. That's why I decided to kill you, just like him." Indeed, she completely seals his mouth, nose, and even his eye. Paul tries to scream, but no one can hear him over the loud music. Due to the blasting music, Cheryl comes over and witnesses the scene. She quickly runs off to call the police. Meanwhile, Wei flees from the house, running through the streets while carrying the stolen formula. She then goes to John, who hugs her and hides her from the police. However, at that moment, the bottle containing the formula breaks, and their skins fuse together, leaving her permanently disfigured. Later, the police announced the discovery of 3 bodies. We learn that Paul did not die but lived the rest of his life horribly deformed. Aunt Ling falls into deep depression and spends her days drunk, especially after learning what happened to her daughter. She starts searching for Wei everywhere. When she finally sees her, disfigured and monstrous, she screams in terror and runs away. Meanwhile, Wei continues living her life, disfigured and homeless, wandering the streets forever. If you liked the movie, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to receive the latest updates.